maybe the first time you saw him?
Well, I think first time was probably at Wonderland. I mean, years ago, at a concert, and I always thought, you know, he was just great, handsome, and I was after him the minute I saw him.
What year do you think?
God, it must have been 70, 69, 70, somewhere in there. And I ran into him at a concert it was down on Broadway, at a club he was playing. And afterwards, he was walking by, and we ended up talking and sort of exchanged phone numbers. And then I don't remember what happened, but I was at a party in Mill Valley, and it was the next night, and he was there. And from that minute on, we were inseparable. From then on, it was like a nine-year relationship. And
Okay, we're going to start rolling now, guys.
You guys were so loud. Trying to keep it down there.
We're trying to keep this low-key and informal, but at the same time. So,
we were inseparable from that day on. I don't think we spent a day apart. You know, and he was just witty and fun, and wasn't at all what I thought he was. I thought he would be real wild and crazy type of person. I thought he was pretty calm, normal, family type person, a real, you know, wholesome guy. I thought there's going to be these wild parties going on and this and that. It was fun, there were parties, but he was still very wholesome and a real homebody, good husband, I thought. And I just wouldn't trade any of those years for anything. Had a lot of fun out there.
what was the, talk a little bit about, we hear, John he liked to play tricks, and he had a wholesome side, but very few people knew him, the way that you knew him. So talk a little bit about him as a person that, that you were intimate with, but you got to know him probably better than anybody else.
I guess he was just very romantic. He liked to, come home with a card or a rose or things like that. He was just real sweet, and he read a lot of books about crystals and just offbeat things. He wasn't your run-of-the-mill type person. He was into crystal skulls, and it would change to ivory, and he carved little things out of ivory. He'd take amber or a chopstick and just turn it into a work of art. He had little projects all the time around the house. He would play with balsa wood and make little guitars, and he was into detail. Very detailed type person.
Did you have a workshop at home?
Not really. He would just, as the projects would come up, he would just get the tools and start working with them. He'd make things. He had a meerschaum pipe he carved from scratch one time, and he just liked doing things like that. He was always doing something with his hands. He had a lot of nervous energy. I don't think he sat too much. Very, very creative. And most of the creativity would stem in the middle of the night. He was definitely a night owl. I remember there were times when I would try to, I'd say, well, I'm going to try to get this to be somewhat of a normal family life here. Forget it. I couldn't beat it, so I joined. But his mother was the same way. They're just night owls. Some people are that way. I remember through the years I kept thinking, I'm going to get him up for breakfast, but that was not John. Breakfast was noon time. And I don't know, he liked things real neat. He kept the house clean, and it was just a lot of fun. I remember we went to Tahiti one time, and he was just like a little kid. The way the snorkeling and this and that. He was just a big little boy.
Did he bring his music, his guitars with him when he'd go on vacation, or did he kind of get away from it?
He ended up getting this little ukulele that he bought on the island, and he started playing with that. And before you knew it, people were around and listening to him play. And he'd do things like that. He didn't plan it. It would just kind of happen. He loved animals. We had a little pet, what do you call it? One of those little crabs that go in the shell. And I forget what you call them. A crab, and it goes into a shell like a hermit crab, a hermit crab. And that became his little pet, and it was kind of heartbreaking. But we decided to leave it back on the island because it wouldn't like it here too much. But, you know, we liked the cat. We always had a little Himalayan blue point. We had one called China, and she was so cute. She'd ride around on his shoulders, and it was just his buddy. You know, he was just very compassionate. One Christmas Eve, the cat got outside and it got hit by a car. He didn't want to tell me. And I had put ads in all the newspapers, and I had posters all over the street. And the neighbor said, "Why didn't your husband tell you?" He just didn't want me to be hurt, you know, and kept thinking, well, there was some hope. So that's just the way he was. He figured if I didn't have to be hurt, don't hurt her.
Did you ever
That's
have
sweet.
a Christmas or a Thanksgiving, a big dinner up here with the whole family? Why don't you kind of describe what that was like with everybody?
Every Christmas, every Thanksgiving, we'd come up here, and just a big, wonderful family. It was real fancy yet informal, but they always had the nicest silver. Everything was top-notch. Everything was from scratch. The cooking, nothing was out of a can. His mother would make, you know, the cranberries came out of, she would make them from scratch, and then they'd play the piano after, and it was just one big party. Sometimes the mother would jam with Nicky Hopkins or John. And, you know, you never knew what was going to happen, but it was always a lot of fun. I really looked forward to those dinners.
So
And
there was a lot more people other than just the family up here, other...
people would stop in, you know, and then Sheesh would make her lasagna, and we'd all come up for that. And I remember one time I tried to make it. Oh, forget it. It's a 6-7 hour job. And I thought, my God, what is she doing? She even grates the carrots that you put in it. And my knuckles were all scratched up. And I said, never again. You know, this white sauce from scratch. And, well, she's a cook, and I guess I'm not. You know, I just did the basic cooking.
Well, you're Italian, aren't you?
No. I was turning Italian being around them. That's for sure. Didn't take long. But I certainly love the family feeling. They're all very close. Really nice.
What did you think about John's style? I mean, how would you, if you had to describe it, the way he played the guitar?
He had a real soothing effect on people, from what I've noticed. People would be, like in the old acid days, hippie days or whatever, if they were freaking out, they'd listen to his guitar music, and it would just soothe the soul. It was something magical. You know, it was just so real. And it just poured out of him so naturally. It just soothed you. It was just, you can't reproduce that, that's for sure. He was just talented.
You felt the same way when you heard it?
Oh yeah, I loved it. Just loved it. Always felt very grateful to be with him. You know, I was very happy. We really had a happy, good marriage, I think. It lasted a long time, considering those were real crazy days. You know, I spent all my 20s with him, and I certainly don't regret any of it.
How many
Yeah,
places?
I always trusted him. I think we lived in about 3 different houses through the years. Well, when I first met him, he was living down the street here on King Street, and it was like the Addams family. You know, apparently lizards had lived there, and he had had a wolf, big pet wolf. And I walked in and said, oh boy, you know, I don't even know where to start. I needed to, as far as I was concerned, burn everything and start new. And I remember getting boxes, and he said, no, don't throw those away. And when he wasn't looking, I would burn the posters. And now, God, don't tell anyone. But some of the old Quicksilver posters and things, I just wanted to clean everything up. I like things a lot more sparse. So we did that, and he didn't live there that long. After that, we moved together, I think it was on Marin Avenue, into a house. And, you know, I had everything organized at that point. It was more or less a normal home with some antiques, some of his guitars. He always had his room with his guitars, maybe a piano or something to play in. And let's see, we moved from there to another house on Central Avenue in Mill Valley. And I loved it because it had a great view, and it had a nice yard, except I was always the one that did the yard work. as I recall. But those were good days. Yeah, it was nice and sunny. The coffin, from what I recall, is just, he used that when he transported the instruments, because he always said to me, they'll take care of a coffin, even if there's no one in it, my guitars won't be broken. So that really made sense to me, And he did like to hang out at the cemetery, which was kind of strange, down the street. We took some pictures down there. So apparently it had a relative or something that was buried down at the cemetery in Tam Valley, and he was kind of intrigued with the stones and, the history of it all. So we went up there and took pictures one night. He was just interested in skulls. I don't know, crystal skulls, period. He loved to wear black, and I always said, John, I was told once that white is a good stage outfit, but no, he was black. Black was him. She used to make him the most outrageous shirts. And I remember the way she would make his shirts. She would hug him. And she'd say that's how she got her measurements. And that's what I call a good seamstress. She didn't need a measuring tape. She said, I measured with hugs. And they always came out fitting like a glove. And he had this guy Con making his black leather pigskin pants. He always liked them nice and tight and handmade. And he loved the black pigskin material because it was real light. And black was his color. He looked good in black, actually. To try to get him to cut his hair a little bit, I would, angle it down the sides a little bit, but I knew better. He was always one step ahead when it came to styles, because he used to say to me, the only way I'll let you cut my hair is if you cut it all off and leave a ponytail down the back. And I thought, how ridiculous that would look. Now everyone's wearing it, right? So I should have listened to him. I said, no, that won't look good, so we'll just leave it long then. But if I had listened to what he had said, he would have been, of course, always one step ahead when it came to fashion, I thought.
I got to hear a little bit more about this, the coffin and transporting the guitars.
Oh.
I just, that's
Yeah,
a
he
great
was kind of
statement.
intrigued.
We just kind of got into the middle of it, so maybe you could just start off by saying, he had this coffin and he was worried about his guitars getting transported, and then he would put them in that.
Yeah.
You could just kind of repeat that
Oh, okay.
that you made before about
Okay.
that. So.
Yeah, he had a coffin so he could transport his guitars without having them damaged, because as he explained to me that they wouldn't, damage anything in a coffin. So it worked perfectly.
That's a great story.
Yeah. And he just, he loved animals. That wolf.
Do you
He still
remember-
talked about that a lot.
We hear, maybe this was